You are my guide. I will not lack anything. These words have traveled through time. They were said by kings in battles, by desperate mothers, and by men who felt lost before the divine silence. They are written in pieces and in the essence of those who seek comfort. But what if I said that this passage is not just about belief, but also about mentality, an invisible principle that, when understood, changes the way you deal with money, scarcity, and success? Napoleon Hill, author of the famous book Think and Be Rich, spent many years studying the mentality of the richest people in the world. After talking to more than 500 millionaires, he noticed something impressive. Everyone believed that success begins in the mind, and that faith is a practical force, not just spiritual. And Psalm 23 already had this wisdom. You are my guide. This expression is not just a poetic metaphor, it is a declaration of identity. The author of the psalm affirms who commands, who guides his steps, who offers what is necessary. And then, nothing will be lacking. Don't notice. He does not say that he expects nothing to be lacking, or that maybe he has enough. He expresses with emotional confidence that nothing will be lacking. This is true faith. Hill described this condition as absolute certainty. He claimed that everything the human mind can imagine and believe can be achieved, but he emphasized that it is not enough to just imagine. It is necessary to believe with intensity and persistence until this belief becomes dominant in the subconscious mind. Now think, how many times have you recited Psalm 23 without really believing that nothing would be lacking? Many people repeat powerful words, but they live surrounded by scarcity. They have faith on Sunday, but insecurity on Monday. They dream big, but act in a limited way. And what Hill discovered, and what the Bible already taught, is that the mind needs to be convinced before reality manifests itself. This is the first base of transformation. To believe as a creative force. Hill affirmed that faith is the only remedy for failure, because it turns uncertainty into action, fear into activity, scarcity into abundance. And the Bible confirms this in each passage of Psalm 23. The Lord is my guide, I will not lack anything. This sentence, in essence, is a declaration of alignment between mind and spirit. It is as if to say, because I know who guides me, I am no longer guided by fear. And this silent belief has a creative power. It is it that reprograms your subconscious. It is it that changes its frequency. That is it that moves you away from the survival mentality and puts you on the path of true abundance. But then, why do so many people still live stuck to the lack? Because there is a big difference between just reciting a psalm and really living it. Many people seek change without going through a true transformation. They want to achieve prosperity without changing their way of thinking. They want results without adjusting their beliefs. Napoleon Hill had this understanding. For this reason, he emphasized the relevance of self-suggestion, the emotional repetition of affirmations and truths, which over time form a new internal identity. And the Bible already mentioned it. Faith is established through listening to the word, repetition, depth, assimilation. If you get up every day saying that everything is complicated, that money is not enough, that life does not collaborate, then you are nourishing a faith that generates scarcity. However, when you affirm with certainty, nothing will be lacking, even if everything outside seems lacking, you send a deep command to your mind. I trust, I persist, I develop, and it is at this moment that the invisible begins to act. Maybe you are experiencing the exact opposite of this now. It may be that the accounts are delayed, your mind is overloaded, and your faith is shaken. But if you continue to affirm nothing will be lacking every day, even with tears in your eyes, something inside you begins to resist the fall. This is the secret that Hill understood. Success is reserved for those who advance even with insecurities. The faith that really moves is the faith that persists. And this is present in Psalm 23, line after line. The Lord is my guide, a choice about who leads me. Nothing will be lacking. The faith about what I have. This sequence transforms everything. While the world rushes in an incessant search, looking for more money, more status, more answers, the psalmist reminds us of something stronger, the peace of those who already recognize that they are being cared for, and being cared for does not mean being still. It means having confidence. It is the foundation that allows you to act with bravery. That is, as if the psalmist said, you can make an effort, because the fear of lack no longer dominates you. You can have great dreams, because you know who provides your steps. You can invest in yourself, because the source never runs out. This faith is not passive, it is full of action. It is the same that inspired kings, prophets, inventors, and entrepreneurs. It is the faith that converts words into beliefs, and beliefs into realities. Therefore, if you have come this far, read this phrase with your heart. The Lord is my shepherd, nothing will be lacking. Read again, but now as someone who chooses, as if you are planting a new idea in your mind. And if you believe that this is the time to make a change, do the following. Write down here, nothing will be lacking. This message is more than a simple touch. It is the beginning of a new dialogue between you and your future, because, as Napoleon Hill said, everything begins with a choice, and as the psalmist mentions, nothing will be lacking. It makes me rest in green places. It gently leads me to calm waters. If the first line of Psalm 23 shows us that faith is the basis of abundance, the second reveals something even deeper. The true wealth begins with the rest of the soul. But don't be fooled. This rest is not laziness, inactivity, or a zone of comfort. It is clarity. It is harmony. It is the inner peace of those who already have a clear goal and know the reason behind it. Napoleon Hill, when observing the most successful people of his time, realized something that few recognized. Before any success, these people had an inner peace. They knew what they wanted, they thought clearly, and kept their minds free of anxiety and hurry. Hill called this mental control, or harmony with infinite intelligence. A noisy mind cannot see clearly. A restless soul does not perceive opportunities, and that is why many are busy, but do not progress. Now see how the psalm portrays God's action. It makes me rest in green places. It is not just a beautiful landscape. It is a strategic pause. It is the image of someone who, even surrounded by tasks and pressures, learns to relax without the fear of losing something. Have you noticed how the great entrepreneurs and leaders in the background are serene? They are not in a hurry. They walk safely. They don't talk much. They communicate in a directed way. They do not react immediately. They decide how to act. Napoleon Hill described that one of the most important characteristics of a fulfilling person is firm decision and quiet action, and this tranquilly comes from the certainty, from that silent conviction that if something has not yet arrived, it is because it is being prepared. The problem is that most people live in a state of constant urgency. They wake up late, they make hasty decisions, they skip stages, that they compare themselves all the time, and they are surrounded by noise, excess, confusion. But the Bible says, "Guide me meekly to the quiet waters." See, it is not something forced or pressured. It is guided smoothly. And Hill said something similar. The mind requires direction, not shouts. You must think calmly and act decisively. Now, stop for a moment. Breathe. Close your eyes for a few moments and try to imagine. What do your green fields represent today? Maybe it is a project that brings meaning. It is not just about money. It may be that a more balanced life means having less rush and more presence. Or maybe it simply means having the ability to make choices in peace, without the pressure of external factors. The quiet waters represent a calm soul, a heart that does not need to prove anything to anyone, and a mind that does not get in the way of hasty thoughts, but that trusts in the right moment. Hill taught that having clarity is one of the most effective tools to achieve your goals. When you know exactly what you want, with clarity, intention, and certainty, the whole cosmos begins to organize itself according to this. However, when the mind is fragmented, confused and full of noise, everything becomes more time-consuming and frustrating. Serenity is the channel through which ideas flow. Tranquility is the soil where solutions arise. And guidance only reveals itself to those who learn to silence excesses. That is why Jesus withdrew for moments of prayer. That is why the prophets spent days in silence, and that is why today's great filmmakers practice visualization, moments of silence in the morning, and move away from distractions. They understood. Those who do not stop to listen, live running without knowing where they are going. Have you allowed yourself to rest in your green fields? Have you trusted enough to be guided without anxiety? Have you lived in a hurry or with a purpose? This is the difference between a reactive life and a life with direction. Maybe, without realizing it, you have been trying to do everything alone for years and you are feeling exhausted. Or maybe you are making important decisions, but your mind is so agitated that you do not know where to start. If this resonates with you, pay attention to what the psalm says. Rest in confidence. Allow yourself to be guided again. Silence excesses. Hill said that faith without direction is a wasted energy, but faith with clarity turns into effective action. Here is a fundamental point. You do not need to wait to have time to start feeling this peace. You can start right now, closing your eyes for 2 minutes, breathing deeply and saying, "Lord, take me to the quiet waters. Show me the way." Turn this into a habit. Write, declare, visualize. And if these words touch your heart, write down here, "I opt for tranquility instead of moving on." For the true progress does not arise from tumult. It comes from consciousness, and also from faith. In the following passages, the psalm will show how to go through the valley of the shadow of death. And even so, do not be afraid. But before that, learn to believe in the time of heaven. It is the place where wisdom arises. Com is the base where the next level is built. It all starts when you decide to stop rushing and learn to be guided again. Even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear anything, because you are by my side. This may be the best known passage in all of Psalm 23, and also the deepest, for here it is no longer about provision or rest, but about facing chaos with a firm soul. The psalmist does not say, "If I pass through the valley," he says that, for he who lives with a purpose understands that sooner or later he will find it in the darkness. The valley is not optional, it is part of the journey. Napoleon Hill knew that. He dedicated much of his life to studying how ordinary people became extraordinary, and he found that most of them faced moments of great pain, loss, humiliation, failure, scarcity, and fear. And what differentiated those who were successful? The way they crossed the valley. Hill wrote that each failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent benefit. Fear is the greatest dream thief in the history of mankind. Persistence is the continuous effort fed by faith. Notice how this reflects the same message of the psalmist. You do not need to run away from the valley. You must trust those who walk by your side. The psalmist did not say that he did not feel the danger. He said that he did not fear evil, because fear paralyzed, distorted vision, and destroyed initiative. Hill dedicated an entire chapter of who thinks and riches to the 6 main fears that prevent success. Fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of health, fear of losing something, fear of aging, fear of death. He explained that all these fears originate in the subconscious mind. They are caused by past experiences, limited education, and a society conditioned by scarcity. The psalmist, in turn, makes the opposite move. He reprograms the mind by faith. He says that even in the valley I will not fear. This decision not to fear is a choice. It is not about the absence of fear, but about leading over fear. It is the same kind of choice that led Thomas Edison to try more than 1,000 times until he managed to invent the lamp. That made Henry Ford fail several times before completely changing the industry. That made Walt Disney continue even after being rejected by many banks. They all faced difficulties, but they kept hope and bravery, said Hill. Belief is the only remedy against fear. Where there is genuine faith, fear cannot remain. Psalm 23 makes this very clear. Because you are with me. It is the perception of the divine presence that strengthens courage. How many times have you hesitated to act because of fear? Fear of failure, being criticized, wasting time, money, or reputation. And if what you consider cautious is not really just fear disguised as reason. Hill teaches that those who do well are those who decide to act, even without. They feel fear, but they keep going. They enter the valley, but with their eyes turned to the other side. The valley of the shadow can appear in several ways. Sometimes it is a complicated economic phase. Other times a diagnosis we did not expect. A betrayal, a failure, a project that was unsuccessful, a period of emptiness in life. But pay attention. The text does not mention that it is the valley of death. It does speak of the valley of the shadow of death. And shadow only appears where there is light. What scares you today can be just a shadow generated by your insecurity. It is not the end. It is the middle. It is the phase between the beginning and the promise. But in this interval, fear becomes intense, and if you are not firm in the idea that you are with me, fear dominates. That is why this part of the psalm is so important. It reminds us that it is not the lack of challenges that strengthens us, but the awareness that we are not alone. If you trust, you cross. If you act with faith, you overcome. And Hill said that failure only knocks down those who give up too early. Persistence is a form of faith in action. Now look at your life. In what aspect did you stop for fear? What choice did you make? Why did the valley seem too dark? What idea did you drown out because you did not want to risk? What version of you is hidden under uncertainty? If this part of the psalm echoes in you, then you need to do what few have the courage to do. Face the valley with faith, not faith without understanding. Faith that advances. Faith that affirms, I am not alone. Maybe what you need now is not more certainty, it is more courage. It is not more control. It is more reliable, and it does not require so many tests. It is more about being present, because as the text says, you are by my side and that is enough. If this part touched you, your soul, write in the comments. Even in difficulties, keep moving forward. This is the statement that solidifies faith, that turns fear into strength, and opens space for what will come. For the journey may be difficult, but the promise remains firm. Leave your comment. Even in difficulties I follow forward. This is the commitment with the courage and the proof that you were not created to stop along the way. Certainly, goodness and compassion will accompany me every day of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord for many days after the time of darkness, after the journey, after the tested faith. The moment of permanence comes. This verse is a confirmation, a reminder that for those who do not give up, the reward is guaranteed, and that true prosperity is not just what you achieve, it is what is with you. Napoleon Hill said that success is not a unique event, it is not a passing peak. It is a deliberate construction of principles that bring constant results and that spring beyond your own life. That's why he talked so much about having a clear purpose, about living with a greater motive than just profit, because the prosperity that comes from the ego runs out, but the one that arises from the mission remains. See what the psalm says. Goodness and compassion will follow me. It is not something that comes from outside. It is something that springs from within and spreads around. It is a way of living that, when lived with faith and purpose, leaves marks of healing, impact, and transformation. It is the legacy of those who understood the cycle. Faith that affirms that I will not lack anything. Trust that rests, green pastures and calm waters. Courage that faces the valley of the shadow. And now the result. Goodness that accompanies compassion that sustains. Presence that remains. Hill taught that true wealth is not how much you possess, but how much you leave when you leave. And the Bible confirms this. I will live in the house of the Lord for many days. This house is not just a physical place. It is a state of mind. It is the peace of those who live aligned with eternal principles. It is the firmness of those who do not depend on the market, trends, or opinions, but follow principles that remain constant. Have you noticed that the most admired people in history were not those with more money, but those who had a constant presence, who kept their dignity every day, who built something significant, Who thought beyond their heritage? Who left something more precious than wealth? Which is inspiration. Hill said that the most valuable wealth is the one you develop internally and share with others. Money is a result of the value you generate. The legacy is a reflection of a mind that did not hurry, but committed to a mission. And this is exactly what the psalmist wants to convey. Those who walk with God live in abundance, and those who have abundance naturally become a channel of goodness. But notice, the verse does not say that goodness and mercy appear from time to time. It says that they will follow me every day of my life. This indicates constancy, a purposeful life, and a clear alignment. And this is where the journey is completed. You begin by saying that nothing will be lacking, and end by saying that goodness will be by your side every day. Because a mind that believes creates, and a soul that trusts overcomes obstacles, and a heart that remains flourishes. This is why Napoleon Hill did not speak only about money. He addressed character, vision, perseverance, love of others, and wisdom. He affirmed that a true achiever is not measured by the goods he accumulates, but by the impact it generates, by the suffering it causes, by the opportunities it opens. And this is also what Psalm 23 calls us to do. Not only to be a survivor, but a builder of paths. You were not created to live only for yourself. You were made to leave a legacy of goodness, change, and presence. The secret of this is in the determination to live with a mind focused on principles today. You can choose for another day to run after things, or for the certainty that what accompanies you is greater than what you seek. Goodness, mercy, peace, and purpose. This is the true set of wealth, and it is available to those who choose to live guided, not distracted, aligned, not rushed, confident, not anxious. If this last part resonated with you, leave a comment. My legacy will be more significant than my ambition. This sentence is not an end, but a new beginning. Because those who understand Psalm 23 live with an abundance mentality and a heart focused on eternity. And as Napoleon Hill taught us, the lasting success belongs to those who sow ideas that transform the world.